Okay, we're up to Chav Zayin Amid Aleph. We start a new Mishnah. Hamevi get v'avadi menu. A person brings a get and he loses it. Now, matzah alter. If he finds it immediately, the Gemara will define what immediately means. Kosher. Then it's still a viable get. V'mlav pasel. What are we worried about? Says Rashi. V'mlav pasel. Shema me'achanafel. Perhaps it fell from someone else. Ve'ein zeh shaloyin. That's not his. So therefore, it'll be possible. The Gemara will qualify this. A new din, matzah b'chapisa oy b'daluskima. However, if you find a get in a chapisa or daluskima, these are different types of kalim. We'll see what they are. In makiroi kasha, right? This is or you recognize it. Rashi says these are two separate dinim. In other words, either you find them in the chapitza or daluskima, or you recognize that it's the get. Then it would be kasha. Then it would be kasha, and we'll see. Again, the Gemara will describe this. Okay. We're going to ask a stira. Clearly, the Mishnah says that you have to find the la'alter. If you do not find the la'alter, right? If you do not find the la'alter, then you would have to go ahead and you wouldn't be able to return it because you're chayish that what? That it's somebody else. Urimino, let's your stira. Matzah gitei noshim v'shechruri avodim daitiki matanois v'shoivrim. If you find gitei noshim, which is our discussion, v'shechruri avodim, or the documents that we use to free an eved. Daitiki, that's the document of the shchivmeirats, the will of a shchivmeirah, a person's on his deathbed. Matanois, a shtar matan of a healthy person. V'shoivrim, or receipts. Harizel lo yachzer. You don't go ahead and give it back. You don't give it back to the Baal. You don't give it to the Isha. And now, what's the reason you don't give it back? Shani Aimer ksuvim hayu. They were written. V'nimlach aleim shloi litnam. And they went ahead and they changed their mind and not to give them. So therefore, since they changed their mind, therefore what? She's not divorced. Therefore, the gift wasn't given. Change your mind. Don't give it to anybody. Now, that's only v'nimlach. Now, ha'amar Regents, look at that. You got me. I'm ready to come back. So ha'amar tenu. Why do we say tenu? They're nice then. In other words, the reason we say Shema, maybe he changed his mind. What happens unequivocally? He says, I didn't change my mind. I divorced her. Then you would go ahead, Rod, and give it. When? Even after a considerable amount of time. That's Akasha. Vafil is Mamaruba. Our Mishnah says you only return it alter immediately. Here, the inference, and the Gemara is going to ask on this inference, how do you know that? Maybe, how do you know this is Mamruba? You're sticking that in. It doesn't say that. So Nimlach. So if you're worried that maybe it changed their mind, but if the guy said to give it, then we'll give it, even if it's Mamruba, that's your stira from a Mishnah in our Mishnah in Gitin to a Mishnah in Bab Mitzia, guys. This is a Mishnah in Bab Mitzia. Okay. Yes.
First, the shliach was the one that found it in the also down here, it's like some Joe Schmo walking down the street picked it up.
Doesn't say anything about a shliach. So, you bring a get, that's a shliach, and it's lost from him. If it's again, what difference would it make? The question the question is this the same get or not? In our Mishnah, we're worried it's a different get, and here we're worried that it's not a different get. That's it. In other words, in both Mitzias, whether it's a shliach or the Baal Dov, I'm talking to you, so please maintain eye contact. So now I'm talking to you. You're reading the art scroll. Thank you. You're doing good, right? You're talking to me now. It's rude. Anyway, what under discussion is only: do you view the get as the same get or not? That's it. We don't. It's not nafkamina between who brought it. There's no nafkamina. That in this instant there's no nafkamina, right? The question is, is it the same get or not? Our Mishnah says you have to be chayish. If it's not alta, you have to be chayish. It's a different get. Here, even though it's the same guy, you don't have to be chayish, right? That's so there's no difference.
That I meant to give it or not meant to give it. If the chash is, if it's a different return to somebody else or not. Whether the Baal says I meant to give it or not, what does that have anything to do with it? No,
I'm saying that so over here, we obviously we're not worried about another get. That's the point. Since the whole concern is v'nimlach whether you use it or not, and not concerned whether it's the same get or not. So you see, it's not a concern. That's the kasha. Yes.
What's come over time
It's not la'alta.
6 months ago.
The Zman Ruba is not la'alta. In other words, Zman Ruba is, we'll define la'alta. Anything that's not la'alta is Zman Ruba. Right? In other words, you don't think like an American. Don't think immediately it's like this and Zman Ruba is in a week from now. No. If this is la'alta, then 2 seconds from now is Zman Ruba. Okay, so we have a kasha. Omar Rabbi like kasha. It's not a problem. Kan b'makom shashayaris mitzuyos. Where are we concerned that it might be from another person? That's a place where there's traffic. There's a lot of traffic back and forth. Caravans are found back and forth, and therefore the concern is that why it fell from there. Kan b'makom shein shayaris mitzuyos. And the other places speaking with what where you're not. So our Mishnah that says that only the altar they're speaking by shayaris mitzuyos, and the Mishnah Bab Mitzvah is speaking what. We're ain't shayaris mitzuyos, and therefore, since there's not a lot of traffic, we're not concerned that it fell from somewhere else. It must be his. Good. That's the way. Now, now we're going to link to another kanech. And even in a place where you have a lot of traffic, there's one more thing that you would have to worry about. Provided you have a person with what? With the same name, his name, his wife's name, the loitei mahachi kasha derabba derabba. So now the Gemara says the following, guys. What's the stira? What's the teretz? Stira Mishnayos. Our Mishnah says la'alta zman ruba no. The inference from the Mishnah about Mitzvah is afil zman ruba. Says the Gemara, the Mishnah in our Mishnah speaking about sheyaris mitzuyos, and the Mishnah about Mitzvah is speaking about ein sheyaris mitzuyos. And even in our Mishnah where it says sheyaris mitzuyos, and you have to worry about another get. That's only provided that what you know for sure there's a guy in the city who has the same name as you and the same name as your father, and his wife would have to have the same name. In that Messias, you'd have to worry about being another get. Missing that, despite the fact sheyaris mitzuyos, then you'll be able to return it. Even though it's manruba, you'll be able to return it because you're not muksik. So 2 things: sheyaris mitzuyos, and you got to check the box on a huksik sheyaris mitzuyos. Now, why do you say this? Now, in other words, the Gemara, that's the end of the statement, and that's Rabbi's statement. Now the Gemara begins to talk. The Gemara is going to say, how do I know to lake tzu, that addendum, that it has to be muksik? How do I know that? Because of an incident that happened, and if you didn't have a way out, then Rabbi would have been slicing himself. Rabbi is the one who gives the teretz, sheyaris mitzuyos and sheyaris mitzuyos. Good? We're laking tzu with sheyaris mitzuyos in muksik, right? How do you know that? Because they're following Maisa. Says the Gemara, if you don't say this addendum of having sheyaris muksik besides sheyaris mitzuyos, then kasha the rabba. You're going to have a kasha rabba on rabba. Now, who gita? There was this get. The ishtakich beidina the Rav Huna was found in the best of Rav Huna. And it was written in the get. We're going to see, guys, in the get that it was. I lived in this area, which is next to this kval. I have a get over here, but Echa b'Shabbos b'Shmona Yomim l'Rerach Sivin Shnas Chamishim Alpayim b'Sheva Meis B'Shona Rias Olam Laminyan Shana Moinim Kan b'Staten Island Masa the Yosva Al Kaf Yoma Al Arthur Kill. You have to write in there which body of water to Arthur Kill. I just, you know what I'm saying? It's so therefore you get the Gemara, right? Where was I? I wrote this. I wrote this get and I found it, and it says B'Shviri Masa. Was written in the city of Shviri, the Al Rachis Naharad, by the river of Rachis. The Amar Rav Huna, it says Rav Huna, Chayshin l'shnei Shvirim, we're Chayish l'shnei Shvirim, and therefore to get you be Chayish that fell from someone else. Amar Rav Chisda Rabba said Rav Chisda to Rabba Hezach Tzu, Poik Ayin Ba, go check this out. In the evening, Rav Huna is going to ask your opinion. What about this get? So Rav Huna says we're going to be chayish for shtei shvirim, and Rav Chisda is telling Rabba heads up. And again, names are important. Rabba is the one who gave the teretz of what? Right? Rabba is the one who gave the Rabba is the one who gave which teretz? Guys, that speaking shayaris mitzuyos. Good. Now, Nafik Dok, he Rav Rabbi went out and he checked into the matter. The Bezdin, any Maisa Bezdin, anything that comes through Bezdin, right? Any Maisa Bezdin, You could return. What does Maisa Bezdin mean? That it went through the court already. So if you find a Shtar and Bezdin, Maisa Bezdin, that they authorized it, they gave a handpick, they recognize the signatures, right? Then you could return it. Now, what in paskening this shaila? If I was asking you, what would you say? Is Bezdin a place where shiras mitzuyos? Sure, right? And what does it say? Kol Maisa Bezdin Yachzer. Who said this then? Rabbi. So Rabbi, therefore, is what kind of teretz did he give before? He said, in our Mishnah, it's speaking where shayaras mitzuyos, and therefore you have to worry. 1 second, you're telling me you're in Bezdin, it's shayaras mitzuyos, and you don't have to worry. Ella must be, there's another addendum to that. What's the other addendum? That it must be in that place they weren't chayish for shtei shvirim. And therefore, they weren't chayish for what? 2 Yosef b'Shimon. That's how you know that addendum, because of the Maisa that happened. Right? The Bezdin of Rav Huna is a place where mitzuyos. You have a nice traffic going through, very busy. The Kaposhit and Yachzir, and Rabbi was pushing Yachzir. So how could that be, guys? If Shiras Mitzuyos, you should have to worry about someone else. Ella must be. Alma, what do you say? Yosef ben Shimon be'irachas in v'loy loy. And therefore, the Bezdin of Rav, the Bezdin of Rav Huna, right? The Bezdin of Rav Huna was the place of Shiras Mitzuyos, and the reason Yachzir because they were muksik to shtei shvirim. So therefore, all the Gemara did it just substantiate and introduce that concept. Okay, one more. Let's go over the cover of Rabbi. Let's go over the Shaka V'Taya outside. Our Mishnah says the following. It says our Mishnah that if you bring a get and it's lost, if you find it immediately, then it's good. If you don't find it, you have to be chayish for another get. We have a stira, a Mishnah in Baba Mitzia says that if the guy says if you find the get, don't return it because maybe he didn't want to give it in the first place. But if he says to give it, and it doesn't say anything about the altar. So the chari means to give it right away. How do you reconcile? The stira says, Rabba, I'm just speaking where shiras mitzuyas, there's traffic, and therefore you have to worry about another get. The Mishnah above mitzuyah is speaking where there's no traffic. Says the Gemara, however, there's an addendum to the fact that there's traffic. In addition, it must be that also that you muksik there's other than one person with the same name. Right? How do you know that? Because you have a Maisa Shahaya, where a place with Shiras Mitzuyas and Rabba Paskin, you do give it back. Ella must be the reason you give it back is because you want muksik. In that case, there were 2 places called Shvirim. Very gishmak. Okay. Gemara continues. Ovid Rabba Uvda Bahu Gita, he acted upon the get the Shtakich Be Kisna. He found it in the house of flax, literally the house of flax. The Pumpadisa, in Pumpadisa, Kishmaitza, according to his psak. Now, what exactly was the shaila? What happened? Ikadiami biduchta hecha de tori kisna. It transpired that the get was found in a place where they soak flax. Now, the place where you soak flax, so you could have a lot of people? No. But afal gav the huchsik. And even though you were muhsik that there's one more than, in other words, in the town, there are people with similar names, even though it's muhsik, right? He paskined what? Return it. Because you're missing component A. You're missing shiras and suyas. That was one possibility. But again, he acted upon his what? His psak, that you needed to check 2 boxes. A, shiras with suyas, and B, muhsik shtei yosef b'shim be'er. The Masved Kisna, it wasn't a place where you soak flax, guys. It was a place where you sell flax. Now, when you sell it, that you have shiras mitzuyos, right? Provided you didn't check the other box, you want muchsik. Very gishmak. Good. Okay, beautiful. We got where's clear. Everyone's happy. Okay. Rabbi Zera now is going to go through the same Gemara, but he's not going to ask from the Mishnah above Mitzia. He's going to ask from the Brisa, a Brisa. The Gemara then is going to tell sich why did he ask for a brisa? What didn't he like about the Mishnah? But it's going to be the same stira, right? Our Mishnah says only dafka la'alta if you find it, and the brisa is going to say even lachas man. Rabbi Zera Rami mastis and a brisa. Rabbi Zera asked the stira from a Mishnah and a brisa. Umishani, and he answered Tanan. I maybe get a Mishnah of avdi menu imatzal alta kasha b'mlav pasal. That's our Mishnah. Remino, I'll ask you a contradiction. Matzah get isha b'shuk. If you find a get isha in the street, bisman shabal moida, if the Baal admits to it that he gave it to her, then Yachsel Isha. Then you return it to the woman. Ain't a Baal Maida, but if the Baal is not Maida, lo Yachser, you don't return it. Lo Lezev, lo Lezeh. Okay, I'm going to get back to this in a second. This point. Amid Beis, Habizman Shebal Maida, Mia Yachsel Isha Afilas Mamruba. When the Baal is Maida, you return it, and even after a long period of time. So you have a stira. Our Mishnah says Alta. Here we said Umishani Kam b'Makom Sheres Mitzuyos, Kam b'Makom Sheres Mitzuyos. Ikad the army v'Husha Hochzik Hu the Loyla Hader behind the Rav the Rabba. Ikad the army Afagav the Loy Hochzik Loyla Hader Upligi the Rabba. And okay, stira. Our Mishnah return the Alta. Husband's Maida Brisa Afilachas Man. Right? Do you need Hochzik or not? What's how do you answer it? Same answer. What's the answer? Sheres Mitzuyos ain't Sheres Mitzuyos. Now, here's where it gets cute. Do you need a second box checked or not? Ikad the army that just like Rabbah, in addition to Sheres Mitzuyos, you would need a machzik. Ikad the army, he's even more machman than Rabbah. As long as Sheres Mitzuyos, even without muchzik, therefore you will be chayish. And he argues on Rabbah. Okay, now why loy lezev loy lezev? Let's go back to do the Rashi in the Amid Beis on Amid Aleph, guys. Why if he's not moed, why don't you return it to this one, not to that one? Loy lezev loy lezev lebal lo yachzir. We're going to Rashi 7 lines up. Lebal lo yachzir shema kfar nasnu la. Maybe he gave it to her already. Umimena nafel, and from her it fell. Ukishayabel liyadai yachzir acher edim masira. If it comes to his hand, he'll find edim masira. V'yidu shegirsha. They'll testify that he divorced her. Ukishetavik subasa. I mean, she's taveya ksuba yoyme praiticha. I paid you up. So it says I get bezdin, right? She goy, but tanan haitzi get veini maksuba goy ksubasa. In other words, if she shows up with a get, she can collect a ksuba. If he has to get in his hand, he'll say, "Yeah, I divorced you, but I paid up. What's the raya? I have the ksuba. Therefore, you don't give it back to him." Therefore, we don't give it to him that he shouldn't recollect. Oh, the Ishala Yachsa, you know why? Boy. I wanted to tell Rashi, why shouldn't you give it back to him? Rashi says, no, you can use it to collect the ksuba. But her, maybe she wasn't divorced, and therefore we don't give it back to her, because she'll say she was divorced. Okay, anyway. Now, here's the question. What did Reb Zera like about our Mishnah? Our Mishnah from Bab Mitzvah, what did he not like? Let's revisit the Mishnah. Let's revisit the Mishnah at the beginning of the daf, guys. Chav Zayin Amar Aleph, right? 3 lines down. Urimini, I'll ask you a theory. Here's the Mishnah. Matzah Gitin Noshim v'Shechrurei Avodim Daitiki Umatanis v'Shoyv. When you find any one of these documents, the only one we care about is Gitin Noshim. Harizel Lo Yachzer, you don't return it. You know why? Shani Oimek Ksuvim Hevenim Lachalehem. Because he changed his mind. He wrote it, but he changed his mind. Shlolitnam. Ha'ama to know, but if he said what? Give it nicenim. Now, where's Akasha on the next 3 words? Bafilu is mamaruba. Mehechetesi. Maybe only miyad. In other words, we're building the kasha off a diak. The diak is we give it back. But in addition to the diak, we give it back what? It was mamruba. How do you know? That's what Rabbi Zera didn't like about this. Now, Rabbi Zera, obviously in his Gebraisa, it must be more clear that it means mamruba, and for that we'll have to see Rashi in a second, okay? Says the Gemara. 7 lines down. Bishlema the Rabba, Loyama Reb Zera. Bishlema Rabba did not ask from the Braisa, he asked from the Mishnah. Mastisan Alim, Alela Kshuye. Again, the Mishnayos versus Braisa. The Braisa, guys, the Lashon Braisa means bar, means outside. When Rebbe went ahead and it was edited, he took all the Torah Shabbat Peh and wrote it down. He left the Braisas out because he didn't hold they were so exact as the Mishnah. And then he wrote the Mishnah, and he wrote in a very concise Lashon. So a Mishnah will always take precedence over a Braisa. So given Drodis to ask a stira, you can ask from 2 Mishnayos. So I understand why Rabbi asked from the Mishnah in Bab Mitzvah. Question, but what did Reb Zera not like about the Mishnah that he went to the Braisa? And you know the answer already. El Reb Zera my time alayim a karabba. What's the reason Reb Zera did not like Rabbi's? Well, why didn't he like his Mishnah? So Amalach mi katani im amar tenu noisnim afilas mamruba dilma mama tenu noisnim kidekaim alon la altar. Maybe he meant immediately, right? So therefore, no, he didn't see the stira. Now, there's one knech we have to ask, but where do you see in the brisa? Where do you see in the brisa that what? Okay, so what's the brisa say, guys? Matzah get isha b'shuk b'sman shabal moida yachzer liisha ein abal moida lo yachzer. Okay, now let's see Rashi. Rashi is the Diber Maskell Dilma Mama Tunu Noisem Loylam Kedekaim Alon. Okay, Kloimar. Badi al Korcha Chodama Tunu Noisem Dayak Mina. That's the great diak. How do you know? Miditoli time Benimlach Aleim. The reason why you don't give it back, maybe at Charata. We could therefore make the inference, Masha, if he openly says, I didn't have Charata and I used it, for sure. That diak is ironclad, right? Again, the Mishnah's lashon is maybe he changed his mind and didn't want to give it. Therefore, if he says tenu, therefore, obviously he didn't change his mind. Good, very good. Now, that's ironclad, says Rashi. Where do you make the diak? That's my meruba. Maybe like we paskin in our Mishnah. Good. That's what Reb Zera did not like about our Mishnah. That's great. Now my kash, but the better kash is that the Gemara doesn't ask, where do you see in the brisa more so that it's mamaruba? What does the brisa say? If the guy is maida, you give it over. I feel is mamaruba. How do you know that? It says aval brisa vaday kasha. Guys, the brisa vaday is share in the Mishnah. I'm going through Rashi with you. But aval brisa vaday kasha. Brisa vaday is mashmashmas mamruba. Why? The tani yaxel isha. The ila altar v'abal moida shita. L'may nechashla. What? There's no chiddush whatsoever, right? Ilav dashminan afilas mamaruba le isrich misnaya. You don't have to learn it at all. The bishleim masnisan like tana babehedya hamatunu noisnim b'isrich misnaya mishum he gufalash minan the lo yachsa. In other words, the chiddush is lo yachsa is the chiddush by itself that you don't return it. But once you told me, guys, what does the Bible say? If the guy loses the get, guys, look at me. If the guy loses the get and he's moida that he wrote it, you give it to the woman. If that's la'alta, is there a chiddush? No. What's the chiddush? That it's not la'alta and you still give it. That's why Rav Zera thought the brisa was more of a kasha, because more apparent that what? That it's speaking as mamruba than the Mishnah. The Mishnah's chiddush only akser, that's enough. You don't have to go ahead and say it's mamruba. But once you tell me you were giving it back, and then Gal buys moida, so what's the chiddush? You know what the chiddush is? It's mamruba. Therefore, Rav Zera liked that much better. Geschmack. Very good. Okay. Says the Gemara Vaita. Rabbi Yomi gives a different teretz. Again, Rabbi's teretz is Sheyaras Mitzuyos, and we're asking whether it's the Brisa or the Mishnah in Bab Mitzia, this teretz will suffice, right? What's Akasha? La'alta versus Ma'amaruba, right? So Rabbi Yomi going to Ka'ama Eidim Me'olim Le'chasam Ne'el Gedachad Shal Yosef ben Shimon. We only there's in other words, there's only one in town. He never the Eidim that's their signature. On this get, we only did one. This guy says it's his. That's enough. We're not chayish. Eidim say it. We only did one. No, you're chayish for two. They only did one. Ihachi. Ihachi ma'ila memra. So what's the price of? There's not. What are you worried about? In other words, you're worried that there was. You have Eidim who signed this get. I don't think you're worried that. What are you going to have? This ad kedei kach, the same Eidim on the same get with. In other words, these Eidim recognize the signatures. They're here. They said we only signed one. So when you can't be chayish for another. Here it's in front of us. What are you chayish for? Says the Gemara, Yihachi Ma'ila Memra. So what's the chiddush? What's this is what you're worried about. This is Rabbi's problem. You're not worried. That's your kasha. That's good. So two terutzim. Shiras Mitsuya is not Shiras Mitsuya Rabba. Rav Yirmiyah's teretz, to Eidim, there's only one game in town, we're not chayish for another get. Third teretz, Rav Ashi Yoma Kegoin, the Ka'omar, Nekev Yesh Boy B'tzad Ois Ploinus. In the letter in the get, it says Masa, and in the word, in the mem of Masa, there is a hole right there. That's called a Simin Muvak. Now, just as an introductory remark, there's you would take for granted from an early age when you were a little kid. Let's see us, you know, there's something. What's your siman? What's your siman? Now there's a big machlokes in the Gemara whether simanim adaraisa derabanan. In other words, if simanim adarabanan, you should need Adam to say that that's your object. However, if simanim on even simanim derabanan, there's a siman that's a higher level siman. That's called a siman muvik. So if this guy could tell you in this get, I have a hole right next to this letter, that is enough of a reason to not worry about another get. So 3 terutzim, sheras mitzuyos, Eidim, only one get, and a siman muvik. That would be Rav Ashi's teretz. Siman muvik, outstanding siman. The dafke b'tzad ois plainis. Dafke, the hole has to be opposite ois plainis. Davle siman muvik. Aval nekev ba'alma. Stam to say there's a hole in this. Loy misafkale. Loy. Why? Because misafkale simanim either raisa either abanim. Because from misupik simanim is the raisa the rabbanon. So I guess when it comes to, if you look at Rashi, misafkale simanim the raisa the rabbanon. Hodamina be'elam etzia shemachsirin aveda b'simanim v'baylan hosam the raisa the rabbanon. Ravashi nami misafkale. Hilkach b'isreish is shleisam pina simanim ba'alma. And this reish is we're not going to go ahead and matter that, you know what, go, it must be yours, right? Because in siman. Dilma siman and rabbanon. Uvemoinu hu dematzi rabbanon lafkir, the hefke best and hefke. Okay, guys, what's the difference? Look at me. Okay, so you have mitzia, yeah, you have mitzia, and siman and rabbanon. So what do you turn it back? Some say, guess what? You know what? It's hefke best and hefke. You can return it. In other words, we want to facilitate that shalom. You know for sure it's yours. The guy's saying, prove it, bring Eidim. You can't bring Eidim. We're going to go ahead and say, listen, we're going to hefka best and hefka. You're going to get it back. We're not this. Bezdin doesn't have the power when it comes to Eben Ezra. When it comes to Choshen Mishpat, they have the power. When it comes to Eben Ezra, they don't have the power. What are you going to say? As Eisha Sish, we're going to say, Siman de Rabbanon, Mustama, that's the get. They don't do that. So therefore, the Rashi is telling you the siman that has to be a siman muvik. Then we'll go ahead and do that. Then that siman muvik will be like a derisical level. Okay, so it's a nuance, fine nuance between the two. It's an important Rashi. Yeah.
He told us that there's 3 dots in a certain space above this letter. You can see it as the siman that is the get that is so that they haven't done before. The siman look.
The husband or the wife to give the siman?
But who
The wife could also give the siman and say, I got the get.
the question is you're going to return it to the husband or not to give it to her? Yachser. The question is only giving it back to the husband.
One.
What?
One.
So again, what are we worried about over here? You're worried about what? Is this his get? That's what we're worried about. Is this his get? L'chari, you don't have Edi Masira, so she didn't get it. You don't have Edi Masira, she didn't get it. So what? She's going to taina that what? I'll bring you a raya, it's my get. Bring the Edi Masira. But I think the Shaila Avram is it a get or not? In other words, what told Shaila Gemara possible? What's possible? We began to share.
It's not a Shaila that he gave it.
No. The Shaila is right. The Shaila is he lost the get. Kosher, meaning it's a kosher get, it's still a viable get. If not, it's possible. Why? Maybe it fell from somebody else, it's not his get. Right. Good. Next, so those are 3 terutzim, right? We have Sheras Mitzuyos, we have 8 only on one, and we have a siman muvik. And then the Gemara just continues, right? Rabbi Rav Chana Irkis Lagita Be Midrasha. He learned that he lost the get in the base medrash. He said, if you want to have a siman in it. If you want, I have what's called tefiyas ayin. Guys, the Gemara in Bab Metzia says for Talmud Chacham tefiyas ayin, you just know what you know it's yours. Like you stare at it long enough, you know it's yours. You don't have a siman, but you just know it's yours. Ahudre Nele, and they returned it back to Rabbi Rachana. Rabbi Rachana said, Lo Yadan, I don't know. Imishum Simani Ahadrua. They returned to me because it's Simanim. Ukasavi Simanim Deraisa. Imishum Tvias Eina, but Dafka was Tvias Ayin, and therefore Dafka Tzuva Rabbanon. Now, the Nishba Maloi would not be with. In other words, Nafkamin Alacha. I'm getting it back, but I don't know if I got it back. I'll siman. Then it's a universal din that's Simanim Deraisa, and you give it back to any Joe. However, if you go ahead and say that what Sibani is the Rabbanon, the only reason they give it back to me is Tvias Ayin. That would be a din unique to a Talmud Chacham, and therefore it has to be a Talmud Chacham in order to return. Says them lav puzzle, and if not, it's puzzle to get it. If it's not la'alter, what's the alter? Don't rabbanim. Eze shaloi la'alter. What's not la'alter? Nasanaima shah kadesh shetava shiara b'tishra. The time it takes for a caravan to pass by and Shim ben Elazar, kadesh adam oimed v'roya shleiava sham adam. That you stood there and you didn't see him else pass. Yeshayim shleisha adam sham. No person was there at all. Rabbi, I make the lichte ves I get. And the time it takes to write a get. Rashi says that's just his man. To write it takes long and to read it. I feel sure, even if you did delay. The Amina Nekar Yeshua Mitzad, I explain it, they may eat them out Simoni Akuf. You can't be, the Aiden can be made on the get itself, but not on the goof of the get. For example, Dami Orach, it's long paper, the it's a short paper, that would not be a good simon. Matsu Kosha Bekis Barnaki Betabas, if you found it tied up in some type of petek or some type of pouch or aniki or tabas or rings or shematzu ben kelov afilas mamaruba kasha. Itma Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel halacha shleisha adam sham, that no person was there at all. Rabbi Rav Chana Amar Rabbi Yitzchak Shmuel halacha shleiaba adam sham. So says the Gemara leimamar halacha. Let one say the halacha is like what is like the yesh aimim. Let one say the let's say one say Rabbi Yehuda says Lach Kiyashem, blame a Rabbi Lach Lach Shimon. In other words, why do you go ahead and say, just say the name of the person? Rabbi Yehuda is a Lach like the Yeshayim, and Rabbi Allah is like of Shimon. Why did you go ahead and speak it out and not mention the names? And for the Gemara, I'll tell you why. Yishim the Afkalahu, because they were switched around. In other words, some people said Rabbi Yehuda, some people said Yeshayim in different sheetas in order, so they spoke out the psak regardless of the person. Matzah b'chapisa beluskima. My chapisa, Rabbi Chana, is chemas katana. It's a small leather flask. My beluskima is talik. The Elta mentioned they have this like a pouch or something. Okay, Ves Hashem, tomorrow the shir will be tomorrow in the morning. Right? Sorry again, from tomorrow and Wednesday it'll be in the morning, I guess.